Right, hi everyone. Today we're going to be looking at images and the two different types of images, so bitmaps and vectors, and all their characteristics, especially vectors we're going to be looking at because that's not something you might necessarily be familiar with. So we'll start with, what is a bitmap? Bitmap is it's rows and columns of pixels. Now, pixels are just the tiny dots on your screen. Each pixel has its own color. A collection of pixels is called an array. Now, there's actually an exam question that comes up quite a lot, and it will say, what is a bitmap made up of? And all you've got to say for the first mark is, well, if you just wrote pixels, you would get 1 mark. But if you wrote an array of pixels, that's why I put that in bold, you'll get 2 marks. And yeah, that's what bitmaps are. Now, like I said, every pixel has its own color, and that is represented by a binary number, so a bunch of 1s and 0s. Now, if you counted all them, you'll get 24, and that number is important, which I'll come back to in a little bit. So, but before we even get to that, let's say you got a 1-bit image. If you have a 1-bit image, you have 2 possible colors, and that is black and white, with 0 being white, so this little grid here, that's how it would look in binary. 0 would be white and 1 would be black. If you bump up the colors, we always kind of work in 8s, so when we're talking, because it's all binary numbers. So an 8-bit image will have 256 colors. These are your old Nintendo games and all that. A 16-bit image will have 65,000 and some change, but the ones we're really interested in are 24 bits. So I said we have 24 numbers here. That gives you 16.7 million colors. Now, why this is important is because it's kind of the minimum amount of colors you need to look realistic, to trick the human eye into thinking it's a real thing. So a decent photo needs to be 24 bits. The name for this, which you can be asked about in the exam again, is true color. Just the color needed to look realistic. So that's bitmaps, really. Bunch of pixels. You can edit each pixel individually, good with like Photoshop and all that. You're used to that. It's photos, really. The one you might not be familiar with is vectors. So when a vector graphic they're used for illustrations, drawings, cartoons, diagrams, that type of thing. The way I kind of think about it is, with bitmaps you would use Photoshop to edit them, and with this you would use something called Adobe Illustrator, which is similar to Photoshop, but it lets you draw shapes, or even just you can make these same shapes in Microsoft Word and that, but it's like dedicated to it. So how are they stored? They're stored as shapes and a list of attributes. And now this is important because I'm just jumping between slides, but with the bitmaps, every pixel has a 24-bit number. It is a 24-bit number. So on the other hand, vectors, like this entire shape, could be represented by roughly the same, by about 24 bits, maybe slightly more. So as a result, they don't use up much memory. So here it is. This means vectors use very little memory. They're just stored as descriptions, so it would store the coordinate of this bit, the coordinate of this bit, how long the line is, and so on. And you can easily scale or resize them, and you won't lose quality, so you can zoom in. It's not going to look pixelated because the computer it changes the numbers, changes the attributes, and it adapts it. So these are the 4 shapes you really need to know about. This comes up all the time, and it might look really easy, like obviously this is a rectangle, but I'll get to that in a minute. So first one is an ellipse. So you need to know, like, they'll actually put a question in the exam that will say, what shape is this? And so many people write, it's a circle. When my arch nemesis, Mr. Miller, had to do a computing quiz, to prove who was better. Well, I was better at biology than he was at computing, obviously. He said it was a circle. I thought that was quite funny. But yeah, it is an ellipse, we have to call it, not an eclipse. Again, a lot of people write that. Sometimes they give you like a squished circle, like this one here. Again, it's all an ellipse. There's not an oval tool. There's not a circle tool. There's an ellipse tool, and you resize it. So this is an ellipse, and it's got a bunch of different attributes. The middle point, the radius, all that. But what we really want to focus on are these ones, and it will become apparent when we look at the others. And that's because that's the fill color, so the color inside, the thickness of the line around it, and the color of the line itself. So I don't know what thickness that would be. Say it's 1, it would be fill color light green, and the line color would be black. Rectangle, same deal. Here's actually how it looks, how the computer sees it. So it has a list of attributes. Again, they'll show you a perfect square and they'll say, what shape is this? And if you say square, you don't get the mark. All you've got to say is rectangle. This one stores the corners, it stores the length and the breadth. But again, the ones we're really interested in are the fill color, the line color, and the line thickness. And that's because they share the same ones, so it's easier to remember them. I mean, you can write down these as relevant answers. They'll often ask you like, name 2 or 3 attributes, but if these are the same, just remember them. Line, just the straight line, it has a start and end point, and again, there's the code for it, but you need to know the color and the thickness. Now this one doesn't have a fill color, unlike the last 2, and that's because there's nothing to fill in. It is just a line. There is not like a blob in the middle to fill in or anything like that. The last one is a polygon. Now it doesn't necessarily have to be this shape. On the first slide it was like a mental shape. Any shape that is not one of these ones is known as a polygon in vector graphics. That's because you would draw with the polygon tool. So, and all we care about, again, before there is coordinates of each corner, you could have a million corners. We just care about fill color, line color, and line thickness. And yeah, as long as you remember those ones, you should be good. That's everything for me, really. So the quiz is here for you to do, and I've added this just because a few people can't access the link, and for some reason that fixes it. Right, thank you for listening. Please subscribe to my Patreon. The link is down in the description below. Thank you. Bye.